Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rin. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good holiday season and are having a good start to your new year. Today we're going to finish out this spread in my sketchbook. Someone had requested a winter themed market or a winter themed town painting. So this was one of the ideas I had in mind when I was thinking about what to paint for those ideas. I did have a couple other ideas for a winter market, so we might revisit this idea in a future video, but today we're going to paint this one that is a little mouse sitting at his market stall selling some kind of hot drink, hot tea, hot cocoa, hot coffee. I hadn't thought that far into a story for this piece, but I ended up using pretty much just my vintage pastels palette for this, with just a couple colors from my Daniel Smith watercolor palette, or sample page, excuse me, and then also just a little bit of blue from my Winsor & Newton palette, just for some color mixing to make a little bit of a deeper blue than my vintage pastels palette has actually in it. I really did consider using my Winsor & Newton palette for the entire page, but I wanted this to still be very cohesive with the left side of the spread, and since I had only used my vintage pastels palette for that side, I thought I'd stick with it for this side. And something I really love about that palette is the colors are so dusty and muted that it naturally looks like a winter's day, like lighting, like the light looks on a winter's day, if that makes sense. It looks like a cloudy, overcast day just because of the way these colors naturally are. So I thought it was a really good choice to use it for this painting anyway, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I actually really love this spread in my sketchbook, and I love pastels, so it always makes me really happy to paint with this palette. I'm sure if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you've heard me talk about how much I love this palette, but I really love it a lot. I'm really glad I bought it back when I wasn't even really painting all that much, just because I thought it looked really pretty, and I'm so glad I did, because I've gotten my money's worth out of it for sure at this point. But so I started with, as you saw, painting the trees, and I did blue and let that kind of fade into a green for the actual evergreen part of the tree, and then went back in later and added some purple and some pink just for pops of color. I still wanted this page to be very colorful, again to kind of match the other side of the spread, because there is so much color on the other side of the spread, but also just because I like to add so much color into my art, and it makes me really happy to look at it. I hadn't painted any full pieces, or this isn't really an environmental piece. It kind of is, because there is the trees in the background, but an actual illustration in quite a while, so I forgot how time consuming it is, and also just how much more work there is to them. So this was good to get back into the practice of something that's a little bit more detailed and more complex than just a simple little doodle. So thank you to the person who suggested this. I really had a lot of fun sketching this out. This is something I'd like to get better at, is drawing buildings, or in this case I know it's just a little stall, but I feel a really good starting point to drawing buildings is starting with something small like this. And when I was designing this, I really wanted it to still have a sense of whimsy, so I didn't want it to be a perfectly symmetrical, or the perspective to be absolutely perfect and it be a square, literally a box. So that's why I wanted some of the lines of the actual market stall to be very curved and not super structured. I ended up looking up pictures from Tokyo Disney, because I feel they do such a good job there with the way their buildings are designed at, of course, keeping so much whimsy while it's still being something that can exist in the real world and actually like works as a functional building. So that was super fun too. I love looking at like the infrastructure from Tokyo Disney. I think it's so interesting to look at, but it was really fun to look at it and study it and then add some of those elements into this piece, which I know you can't really see very well, probably really at all, but I know I'd be better at this with more practice, but this was the first time I've ever drawn something like this. So I was really happy to at least start on that process of studying and learning and challenging myself to get better in art in different places, because I think it's really easy to get very stagnant with art and just draw what's comfortable and draw what you always draw. So this was a really nice challenge, but not in a way that made me feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I need to just like throw out my sketchbook type of way. When you know how I like that feeling when you're drawing something that's very complicated and you're not used to drawing. But also in the process of doing this, I did consider using tracing paper and putting this on actual watercolor paper and painting it on actual watercolor paper. I don't know what it is about using tracing paper for me, but it makes me so stressed out, and I like got really nervous and was like having a really hard time with it. And it was like, no, it's just not worth the stress of doing that. Not at this point in time anyway. I know I need to like get over that, but right in the process of painting this, it wasn't worth the stress of it. So I went ahead and just painted it, obviously directly in my sketchbook. I only wanted to do it on tracing paper for the sake of making sure my watercolors would blend better. But I think I'm getting more and more used to how is best to paint on this paper. So they were pretty good. They're a little patchy in some spots, definitely, but they were better than what I thought it would be. I was concerned that it would end up looking really muddy and it'd be hard to tell what things were, and I don't feel like it looks too much like that. I think I did okay, and that wasn't too much of a problem. So I was really happy that this turned out as well as it did. Also, here in lining the window, I messed up. That's why I'm like smudging out the pink there. I accidentally got out farther than what I wanted to, so I just kind of made it into a shadow and hoped it looked okay. My cat kept coming and like pawing at me while I was lining some of this stuff, so some of my lines weren't as clean as I would have liked them to be, but that's okay. I also had a lot of fun lining this with watercolor, despite the fact that some of them weren't as clean as I wanted them to be, just because I felt like I'm getting more comfortable with that, and I am starting to get more of a steady hand, which makes me super happy. And I also did add off-camera glitter in some spots to this. I have kind of stopped filming that because I feel like the camera just doesn't pick it up very well. But I also kind of debated adding highlights to this or not, because the left side of the spread doesn't have any highlights, but I thought I'd add some just to help the mouse pop out a little bit more from the background. And this is the finished artwork. If you are still watching, as always, thank you so much for watching to the end. I really, really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like to see me draw. I will see you in the next video. Remember to be kind and stay cozy. Bye!